you're just doing this to get like rage bait. You're just doing this for engagement, just to get people upset and angry. All caps, explain yourselves. That is wildly inappropriate. My husband wouldn't have a dick left if he asked me that. Hello and welcome to the Pillow Talks podcast. We're your hosts, Vanessa
and Xander Marin.
I'm a sex therapist with over 20 years of experience.
And I'm just a regular dude. We share the ups and downs in our relationship while giving you step-by-step techniques for improving yours.
Make sure you subscribe for your weekly double date full of totally doable sex tips, practical relationship advice, hilarious and honest stories of what really goes on behind closed bedroom doors, and so much more. It's the sex education you wish you'd had. So a couple of months ago, we did a very raw, personal episode. I think we called it a brutally honest life check-in or something like that. And we talked a lot about just real things that were going on in our lives. And one of the things we ended up talking a lot about was some frustrations that we were feeling with the podcast, or just the challenge of not really being able to interact with listeners. Like, we can't really hear back from you in the moment or, you know, quickly thereafter, like what you guys are thinking, what you're wanting more of, what you like. And we did end up getting a lot of great feedback from you guys over social media. You had to like go to a different platform to give us the feedback, which was really great to hear. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's definitely worth checking out. We talked about a lot of other stuff too, not just the podcast. But I thought, you know, why don't we talk about some of the challenges that come up with social media too? Because a lot of people were like, oh, we love the podcast. Like, yeah, following you on social is fun, but like, I feel way more connected to you on the podcast.
Yeah, I think the implication is kind of like, oh, well, it's like hard to interact on the podcast. And therefore that we're saying like, oh, we love social media. We love Instagram because we're just able to communicate with people all the time. And the reality is there's some real challenges and limitations with social media too. So, I mean, the interesting thing about that is, you know, we're going to be kind of talking about the flip side of this and being able to talk to you on the podcast about some of the real shit that we go through on social media, some of the real shit that comes up and some of the stuff that we might like to say sometimes that kind of is hard to say in that social media format. Yeah,
I mean, obviously there are pros and cons to each platform. And one of the things that I really appreciate about this podcast is that we can talk about things in so much more depth and nuance. Social media is not a place for depth or for nuance. And so it can just be, really challenging to have a real conversation on social. I feel like we can show up so much more as ourselves and have these real conversations and get into how we really feel on the podcast.
Yeah, tell me how you really feel, babe.
That's another different podcast episode. But, you know, there are a lot of different challenges that come up with social. We won't talk about all of them. I mean, maybe you guys are interested in hearing like a real behind the scenes of what it's like. But what we thought, let us know if you are. But what we thought we would focus on is let's take some of the content that we've created that has really popped off on social and bring it over here to have these deeper, more nuanced conversations, to really dissect like certain comments that people left, arguments that people got into in the comments, just really giving you a more fleshed out view of a couple of these different posts, because they talked about really important topics that I want to just get into more.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this gives us the chance to say some of the things that we might like to say on social media that we just, it's not that we can't, you always can say something, but like stuff that we kind of hold back from saying because there's no way to get this message across in like a short response to a comment or something in a way that someone is going to react positively to.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's get into our review of the week, because reviews really are the very best way that you can help our podcast grow, because that lets other people know we're looking at our podcast for the first time, that we are a legit podcast, that, you know, we actually have interesting and valuable things to say. Because let's be real, there are a lot of podcasts out there, and sometimes it's hard to tell kind of what the real ones and what the not so real ones are. So the way
the real one? What do you mean? Like a fake podcast? Like, here's my podcast about wellness, and you tune in and it's just like blank noise. What's a fake podcast?
I mean, it's just like not a very good podcast.
It's my fake podcast. All right, continue.
All right. Maybe not so real podcast. Take, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, help us out with a review. It helps us so much. All you do is you go to the Apple Podcasts, go to the Pillow Talks main podcast page, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you will see the space to enter a rating. So smash that 5 stars and then just leave us a couple sentences telling us what you love about Pillow Talks. And if you hear your review read aloud on this podcast, like right now, that means that you've won our Review of the Week giveaway. We will give you a free masterclass. All you got to do is DM us on Instagram at Vanessa and Xander or email us at info@vmtherapy.com. So without further ado, evidence-based and down-to-earth. Thank you. I have sexual trauma and have been working on my shame and fear in therapy to help improve my relationship with sex and myself. I'm with a wonderful partner of 5 years, and this podcast has been a helpful supplement to this journey I'm on because we can listen and work together, and I feel like I'm not on my own. As a mental health professional, I appreciate the evidence-based and down-to-earth approach as well. Heart.
Oh, thank you so much for this great review. Okay, so let's get into it. I figured that we had to start with the role-playing your friend controversy.
Oh, this is a very recent one.
Okay, so here's how it unfolded. We did a podcast episode, which you may remember, called Am I Being Reasonable or Ridiculous? So I think it was the very first question that we answered.
We went in hot with this one.
A husband said that he had asked his wife to role play her best friend sexually.
And she had not responded well.
She was not into it. She was really unhappy.
And he was trying to say, was it reasonable that I asked her?
Yeah. So we did a, 10-minute breakdown of that question. And on the podcast episode, we also made a reel to encourage people to come on over to listen to the podcast. And so we did a reasonable or unreasonable, Xander and I stood in the middle. Oh, and I forgot to mention for all these clips, I think that we're going to splice them in with our YouTube channel. I don't know if a lot of people know, we also have the full podcast episodes on YouTube. We're going to be doing some experimenting with some video as well, but you can always listen to them on YouTube, and they're transcribed too for any of our hard of hearing friends. So anyways, we'll put that over there. But basically it was Xander and I standing in the middle, and it was step left if it's reasonable, step right if it's ridiculous. And we went through, 4 of the scenarios from the podcast episode, and we did that one first. We definitely knew that one was going to intrigue people. Of course, you're trying to get people's attention in that split second on social media because all of our attention is so scattered. But the comments went off. People
from
were
the jump
angry. So at first there was just a lot of did you guys get that one wrong? I think you did the editing backwards or something.
You stepped the wrong way.
But then we had the first one is diabolical. There were a lot of angry, you're going to need to clarify that. And then once people, I was in the comments for a little bit saying no, this is actually our opinion. It wasn't an editing mistake. We do genuinely feel that. Listen to the podcast episode for our explanation.
Yeah, because we go into it in a lot more detail.
Yeah. And then once people saw, no, this is not a mistake, then people started getting really, really angry and saying you're just doing this to get rage bait. You're just doing this for engagement, just to get people upset and angry. All caps, explain yourselves. That is wildly inappropriate. My husband wouldn't have a dick left if he asked me that. It was just people were really, really upset. If you're like most people, you could really use some better sleep. And one of the best ways to make sure you get better sleep is with Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth makes the most incredible bedding. All of their sheet sets are temperature regulating. They're super breathable. They help you sleep cooler, and they're so freaking comfortable. If you're somebody who just wants to be enveloped by the softest linens, you will not find anything softer than Cozy Earth.
I have never been so excited to get into bed since we had Cozy Earth sheets.
And Cozy Earth bedding has an incredible 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, so you really can't go wrong. And I know we've only been talking about their bedding so far, but they actually make a ton of other products too. They make bath products. They have clothing. If you just want to be living that like luxe pajama life all the time, like they have pajamas, but also like clothes that are just incredibly soft, just have this really luxurious drape that feels so good on your skin. We absolutely love Cozy Earth, and there's just so much to explore and discover. You can visit cozy.com and use our exclusive 40% off code Pillow Talks. So you may get a post-purchase survey. Please say that you heard about Cozy Earth from Pillow Talks. They have been such a big supporter of the podcast, and we'd really love to show them some love, especially because we really love their products.
A better year starts with better sleep. So wrap yourself in Cozy Earth.
Visit cozy.com and use our exclusive 40% off code Pillow Talks. So we believe that as long as things are between two enthusiastically consenting adults, anything goes. Like there is literally, for any kink, fantasy, fetish, curiosity that you can imagine, there is somebody that is into it. And if you find each other and your interests align and you're both enthusiastically on board with it, like who are we to judge or tell you like you can't do that or can do that?
Yeah, and then the only other caveat to that is like I would say anything goes between two enthusiastically consenting adults, assuming it is not impacting anybody else adversely.
Yeah, and I'll actually adjust it to just say, like, as long as it's between enthusiastically consenting adults, it can be more than two. So based on that belief that as long as everybody's on board and they're excited about it, I think it also goes to follow pretty reasonably that it's okay to ask for whatever it is that you want, that you're curious about trying, that you want to experience with your partner. Like, we are big proponents of open, honest sexual communication. We're big proponents of people taking responsibility for their desires, for their interests, trying to be teammates with each other. So I think it's okay to ask for whatever it is that you want to ask. Now, that being said, whenever we're making a request of our partner, we also have to be thoughtful and sensitive about how they might respond to that request.
So read the room, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm allowed to ask, Xander, will you pluck out all of your beard hairs with tweezers for me? But I also need to be thoughtful about the fact that, like, hey, that's going to cause him pain. I don't think he's going to like that. That is a pretty tall request. So I need to really severely minimize my expectations here. But the point that I really want to make is like, there's a difference between asking something and expecting something.
Yeah. But let me back up a quick second because, that was a really interesting example you gave of asking me to pluck my beard hairs out one by one with a tweezer. Because, okay, let's say in some theoretical world that you derived like pleasure out of watching, like those sort of like the sadomasochistic
I would not
type of thing. Be like she's making that request because she's like, what would really get me off is like watching you do this. Like I would love it. Depending on what Vanessa already knows about me, that could be a request where she can reasonably expect that I might have a positive response, or she could reasonably expect I might have a negative response. Like if Vanessa already knew about me, hey, Xander's actually kind of into pain play, or like he kind of enjoys things that are a little more intense than most people, then that might be a request, where she might have a reasonable expectation that I actually would say yes. But on the flip side, if she knows that, hey, every now and then Vanessa like pulls an ingrown hair out of my beard and I yelp because I do. Like if she knows that, she's going to know it's a pretty tall order to make that request.
I want to use a different example because like I would never ask you to pull your beard hairs out. Like it causes you so much pain.
Well, here, I have a great example. So I know that Vanessa gets seasick quite quickly. Like we went on a whale watching trip once and it was, Vanessa's like throwing up off the boat for like 4 hours. It was really bad. So like I know this about Vanessa. Now I could get really excited about like wanting to go on a month-long cruise. And it would be reasonable for me to ask Vanessa, hey, what do you think about going on a cruise?
Month-long cruise, that sounds like my worst nightmare.
I wouldn't want to do this.
Than the seasickness.
I wouldn't want to do it either. But like, I could ask her. Like, she couldn't fault me for asking. All she has to do is say, you know what? I don't want to do that. I get so seasick. That would be horrendous for me. I don't want to do that. But like, I know that Vanessa gets seasick. So it would be kind of silly for me to ask that. It would be silly of me to expect that she might say yes, because I already know that she's not going to be into it. So what we were trying to say is like, yeah, it's totally reasonable for you to ask this, because you didn't tell us like, you know, anything about your wife, like whether you think that she could or couldn't be into it. Like, so it's reasonable to ask, but like, you got to read the room, and like, she reacted really poorly. I would imagine you probably would have had some clues beforehand that she wouldn't be into it.
So this is the thing. If the guy had reached out and said, I want to request this, I would have advised him really differently. I would have said, like, look, that's a tall request. Sure, there are for sure some people who would be into that and be very turned on by that. But I think the likelihood is like 99% of people, us included. Like, if you asked me to do that, my feelings would be hurt. I'd be upset. I would not be willing to go along with that fantasy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think I would feel the same way.
Yeah. So it's like the vast majority of people are not going to be into it. So let's tread carefully with this one.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, I'd ask him, like, what do you think she might say based on what you already know?
And I would do other things like, you know, maybe try talking dirty a little bit. Like, about like having sex with other random people. See if she's into that first, because the whole idea of it being her friend, that's the really tough part of it.
That's
so it's like,
taking it up a notch.
Ease your way into, is she comfortable talking dirty about other people? Is she comfortable pointing out, you know, you guys see another woman on the street and you saying like, oh, I think that woman's really hot. Does she go, ooh, yeah, I think she is too? Or is she like, hey, don't say that. That hurts my feelings. I don't like that. Or, you know, I don't want to talk dirty about other people in the bedroom. Or I don't want to role play a nutty nurse or anything like that. And we'll get into that in another second.
Oh, you're laying breadcrumbs. Yeah. I like it.
So I would like gauge her reaction. And if she's giving you negative reactions to those little steps, then I would not bring up the idea of role playing the best friend. But again, I just want to I want to differentiate that he's not a bad person necessarily, just on the surface. The fact that he thinks it would be hot to have her role play as a friend, I don't think that inherently makes you a bad person. It's a taboo fantasy. A lot of us have fantasies specifically because it feels taboo and kind of naughty and forbidden. But again, we do have to be realistic about like your partner is a human being. They have feelings. They have their own boundaries and interests and curiosities. So when you're requesting things of them, like you just have to be thoughtful about that. Okay, here at Pillow Talks, we go there. We talk about all the personal, intimate stuff that people aren't talking about enough.
So we got to go there in our ads too.
We got to talk to you about wiping your butt.
We do.
Your butt deserves better. Your butt deserves a lot better. And we want to tell you a little bit about our new podcast sponsor, Good Wipes. Good Wipes will elevate your everyday hygiene with premium wipes that deliver a superior clean that no dry toilet paper can match. They're infused with soothing botanicals like aloe, vitamin E, and chamomile, so they're gentle enough for sensitive skin. They are super soft, and they are free from harsh chemicals, parabens, and dyes. We are both really nitpicky about the ingredients that we put on our skin, so making sure that...
I thought you were going to say the products we put in our butt.
I mean, not true.
Because we are. And no, these wipes are great. I love them. I'm super happy that I have some in the bathroom now, and I've been using them every single day.
They're in all of our bathrooms. And if you want to upgrade your restroom ritual, you can grab Good Wipes at Target, Walmart, Kroger, and most local grocery stores. Just head to the toilet paper aisle and look for the bright aqua, rose, and emerald packages. They're also available on Amazon if you're more of an online shopper. There was also one, I feel like we could do a whole episode just dissecting this one thing, but I do want us to move on. But I do want to talk about one other piece of this because there were such fascinating conversations happening about this. So let's assume that the wife actually was on board. She's like, ooh, that sounds really sexy. Is it okay to role play someone you know, Or is that damaging to your friend? Or is it like your friend is not consenting to be a part of your sex life in that way?
Yeah, that was a lot of people were jumping in and being like, well, it doesn't even matter whether it's reasonable or not. Like, even if they both wanted to do it, it's not like morally okay because the friend hasn't consented to be brought into your fantasy, which that is, I mean, I understand that line of thinking, but like there is a difference between, you know, fantasizing about something and then like doing it in real life or talking about it in real life. And so, yeah, I think that that's totally valid if both of you go out and tell your friend, hey, guess what? We've been having sex and pretending that it's you.
Yeah,
like,
obviously
then that's
don't
like,
do that.
Yeah, she did not consent to that. That is not okay. That's like a one-way ticket to blowing up your relationship.
Yeah, that's violating. That's not okay. Like, that would be horrible. But the idea of it being something that just the two of you, and not telling other people either. Like, I think that would definitely cross the line too. Like, if you told, you know, other friends but not her.
Oh yeah,
that would be super icky too.
Telling anybody about that is, I mean, I would just go as far as to say as if this is something that you two really want to do, it's probably best for you to keep it between each other. Like that's just like a private fantasy that you guys do in your own bedroom.
But even then, I mean, I have to admit, I'm still sifting through this one in my own head, and I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. So you can DM us at Vanessa and Xander. But on the one hand, I'm like, I do get it. Like, I think if I knew that some of my friends were fantasizing about me and role-playing me, that would be a little weird. And I do think if there are certain, like if you're role-playing, I don't know, torturing her or something like that would feel a little bit weird. So I do kind of get it. But on the other hand, I'm like, you know, fantasy is just a fantasy. It's not something that's actually happening. It's happening in our heads. All of us fantasize about people, you know, sexually and non-sexually. We fantasize about people without asking for their consent. We dream about people without asking for their consent. So like,
nor we can't ask for any consent.
We don't even have control over that. So I think probably the majority of people have masturbated thinking about somebody without asking for their explicit consent.
Yeah, probably someone they know.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with that. Again, if you're in your head really degrading somebody, doing violence to them, being cruel to them in some sort of way, like, yeah, I guess that it ethically feels like a little bit icky. But I don't know. I don't know really where to draw the line, but I don't think we can or should police our thoughts in that way. Someone in the comments made a really interesting observation. They were like, you know, we have this whole naughty nurse thing that I just brought up a minute ago. Like, nurses don't consent to being objectified in that way. And you can
Halloween.
You can make a pretty strong argument that that's like a fucked up thing to do to nurses in general, that we're, you know, taking this incredibly hardworking, important, life-saving profession and we're turning it into something
we're
like
sexualizing it.
Sexual and slutty that we're playing around with. So yeah, I mean, we just have to stop here because I could keep going and going and going. But it's a really, really interesting, like, philosophical debate to have. Like, is it okay to fantasize about somebody without their consent? Okay, let's move on and let's talk about our next reel. This one
surprised us.
I never would have guessed. When I was filming this one, it took literally 10 seconds to film. I never would have guessed that this would go on to become our most viewed reel ever, or just most viewed social clip ever on any platform.
Yeah,
I think
what
the
is
last
it? What
time
is
we
it
checked,
at?
it was at like 20 million or something like that. It's probably even higher now. But
it just keeps going.
Basically, the reel, if you're not watching our YouTube.
Oh, it's real easy to describe.
Yeah, it's me doing a dumb little dance in the hallway.
Heart and Soul on the piano.
So, and the caption is like, POV, headed back to my desk after having sex with my husband in between meetings. That was literally it. It fucking blew up and it got distributed beyond our Instagram audience. You can always
20 million is more than our Instagram audience?
Yes. So whenever we get the people who are like not following us watching our reels, you can tell immediately.
After you get beyond for our account, once you get past like 400,000 views, things start to take a turn in the comments, I would say.
So the main criticism that came up of this one was basically people just saying, you shouldn't post this. So there was a lot of like, can we normalize not posting this kind of nonsense on the internet? It's forever. Nobody wants to know this. So I got a little sassy in some of the comments and was just like, can we normalize tapping through to people's profile and seeing what it's all about? Like literally all you have to do is just, you know, I can understand being confused about like, whoa, what is this woman? Like, what's this all about? But then you tap through and it's like sex therapist. It makes immediate sense if you just take that one little action. But of course, that's too much for people on the internet.
Oh yeah, that step of being like, oh, this is a sex therapy account. They talk about sex. Like that also would address a lot of other comments that we had of like, oh my God, what if your boss sees this and you get fired?
Oh yeah, I responded.
Or, I'm gonna go on LinkedIn and find who you work
Somebody
for.
Somebody literally said that.
I know.
Like,
I was
like,
go
please find
please.
your boss on LinkedIn, and I responded and was like, lucky I'm the boss, dummy.
I know. It's like, yeah, one, it's our company. Number two, this is the topic that our company deals in. So this is, yeah, like, you know, it would be more, you know, I don't know, like if you did something like, oh, in the middle of the workday, me watching sports or something. And it's like, arguably, you have more of a case to like get you fired from your sex therapy job for doing something that's not sex therapy. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's so funny to me, people that are like, oh yeah, I want to actually go get you in trouble for this. I really wish that one of them had come back to the comments and been like, oh, I found out that actually this is what you do.
I mean, I do understand feeling like that reel was kind of random. Like if it just came up in my, you know, when I was scrolling through reels or whatever, I'd be like, okay, that's interesting. Like, why did that person decide to make a reel about that? I get that aspect of it, but to like get so upset that you want to hunt down my boss and get me in trouble is really bizarre.
I mean, I think it just speaks to how repressed so many people are when it comes to sex, and how, like, I mean, I think that it's just proof of how little sex is a part of discussion or conversation or like anything in a lot of people's lives other than, I mean, or it's like, at least it's so compartmentalized. Like most of these people commenting, I'm sure they do have sex, but most of them are like, no, sex is something, yeah, maybe not. But like, you know, for the people that are saying that do have sex, like it's definitely coming from a perspective of this is supposed to happen in, you know, behind closed bedroom doors. And I don't want to know about it. I don't want to tell anybody about it. I don't even want to acknowledge that sex is a thing that I have regularly.
There were also a ton of people posting this image that said, we should all know less about each other. It was like a newspaper headline or something. And I know to listeners of the podcast, I do not have to emphasize this point that much with you, but I totally disagree with that. I'm like, you know, if we were talking about sex more openly and honestly, and it was more normalized and it wasn't a weird thing to just say like, yeah, I had sex with my husband. It's like
in the middle of the day. Who cares what time it was? No, you're not allowed to have sex in the middle of the day, only after 10 p.m.
I think it would be a great thing for us to know more about of each other.
The other thing that I thought was highly ironic about people, so like thousands of people posting that we should know less about each other headline, is that I'm nearly certain it's a New York Times headline, because I can tell because of the font. The New York Times uses a very specific font for their headlines. It's just hilarious to me that people would post a New York Times headline when the New York Times specifically has written multiple articles about you and us and our business and sex therapy. And also you have written articles about sex for the New York Times. So it's just very funny that people are like taking an article from a publication that actually like that where you write for or they write about us somewhat regularly.
Okay, let's move on to our fuck first reel. This is another very recent one. So the setup of the reel was basically us walking out the door for New Year's Eve and then like turning around and saying like, oh wait, we forgot to fuck first. So if you haven't heard us talk about fuck first before, it was originally created by Dan Savage. And the whole idea is to have sex before you go out on a date night or go out to a party, because once we've all eaten or had something to drink or it's getting towards the end of the night, like that's a really tough time to have sex.
Especially as you get older.
Yeah.
The older you get, the harder this becomes.
So Xander and I have a really big problem. We love good food and we love eating healthy, but we really hate having to pick what to eat every single day.
Yeah.
And like all the mental load and energy that goes into like, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. And then we have to spend all the time and energy actually cooking it too.
And planning it. I mean, I just want to be able to open up the fridge at lunchtime and be like, oh, that's what I'm having.
And that's why we are so excited to introduce you to our podcast sponsor, Hungry Root. Okay, look, I just have to give it to you straight. I know there are a million meal prep services out there.
This one's different.
This one is different. When we first signed up with Hungry Root, we were like, we have to try this out first to see if we can recommend it. And we were totally blown away. So not only is it meal prep, it's also the fastest meal prep ever. Basically, what Hungry Root does is they take all these products and ingredients from some of our favorite, really great, healthy, wholesome brands, and they create recipes that you can throw together in like 5 to 15 minutes. I was shocked by how fast these meals came together. But also, they have a whole other section of offerings that includes like healthy snacks that you can have and even grocery items. Like you could do all of your grocery shopping through Hungry Root, like your produce, your meats, your snacks, like everything is available to you. It seriously blew my mind. I've never seen anything else like this.
Yeah, it's like there's pre-prepared stuff. There's stuff where it's like individual items are prepared, but then, in 5 minutes, you're mixing a couple of things together to have a full meal. There's also the full blown, if you want to cook a meal for, 30 to 45 minutes from all raw ingredients, there's also that too. So it's really the perfect blend of everything. And you can get a range of things because sometimes I want to cook a whole meal. Sometimes I want to spend 10 minutes and have dinner on the table.
I mean, we literally had dinners that took 6 minutes to make and they were delicious. Like I was so excited. We don't have a Hungry Root box this week and I'm like, this is sad. We have to go back
we gotta change. We gotta get an order in like ASAP.
We feel confident that you're gonna love Hungry Root as much as we do, and we have an incredible exclusive offer for you. For a limited time, you can get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/pillow and use code PILLOW. That's hungryroot.com/pillow, code PILLOW, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/pillow, code PILLOW. So the main debate that popped off in the comments section, which it does every single time we post about the fuck first rule, is whether or not it works for parents. So one person wrote, the thought of this is great, but it's not doable with small children at home. Another person wrote, I wish there was an account like yours for parents with kids. A lot of the advice you have is great for childless couples, but not so great for parents with young children, unfortunately. And then a bunch of parents jumped in and started saying like, hey, I'm a parent. This actually does work for me.
This actually changed my relationship.
Yeah, I'm so happy that we've done it. And I actually shared that Dan Savage, who created this rule, is a parent himself. So before we even wade into this one, I want to start by saying Xander and I are really big believers that one size fits all advice is not real. Like we have so much respect for individuals, for diversity, for differences. We are never going to say to you, like, this is how it should be for every couple. It's just not, that's just not life, right? So the way that we approach our content is we want to share as many different tools, tips, advice, suggestions, tell you what works in our relationship. We want to share stuff with you, but we leave it to you and we trust you to find the things that are going to work in your relationship.
Or adapt them to your situation.
To adapt them to work for you and to leave behind the things that don't work for you. So like to look at our stuff as a buffet and you get to go through it like, ooh, I definitely know I'm going to like that one. Ooh, I'm kind of curious about trying that. Ooh, I know I'm not going to like that one. Like, it's up to you. And you are the only person who's living your life, who's in your relationship, who's in your family. You're the only one who gets to decide. Like, we are never going to say, like, we know better for you than you know for yourself. Like, that's just ridiculous. So if any one piece of advice, you're like, I don't want to do that, cool, don't do it. I'm not here to force you or police you or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, thinking the buffet metaphor got me thinking that would be, Vanessa hates hazelnuts with a passion. But so this would be like, if every single buffet that Vanessa went to where they had Nutella sitting there, like with like the bread and the spreads, if she was like, oh, I hate that buffet because they have Nutella, that would be so unreasonable. She gets a bunch of food, she loves it, and she's like, yeah, they had Nutella. That was a horrible buffet. Like, that wouldn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, of course. So I want to be honest, like, these are some of the comments on the entire internet, not just on our account. Like, these are some of the comments that annoy me the most. It's like people jumping in and saying like, that won't work and that's not going to work for me. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. Then it doesn't work for you. But like, just move along to the next thing. I think that people waste so much time and energy like engaging with stuff that doesn't apply to them. If it doesn't resonate with you, then save your energy and just move on. But I think that where it's coming from is that we all feel so invalidated in our own lives and choices and decisions that we have this really primal desire and urge to have other people agree with us. And so like, we want to leave that comment like, it won't work for me. And we want to have other people jump in and say like, yeah, you're totally right. It won't work for me either.
Yeah,
to, like,
your excuse.
Have this sense of camaraderie in it.
Yeah.
But I get the impulse and the instinct. But what I want people to recognize is you can give yourself that validation. Again, you're the only person living in your shoes. And you are the only person who can decide if something will or won't work for you, or if you want to try it or you don't want to try it. So like, just give yourself that validation and save yourself all that energy of fighting with other people about it. Because the reality is, for somebody else, that is going to be interesting to them, or they are going to want to try it. And nobody's right or wrong or better or worse here. We're just different people. So save your freaking energy. We all need to do a better job hydrating, and Cure is here to help make that easier. Cure is the cleanest way to hydrate. They are made with clean ingredients, zero added sugar, giving you pure hydration without any of the junk. Only 25 calories per serving, no added sugars, no artificial sweeteners, just clean, natural hydration that keeps you feeling energized without the crash. Cure is doctor approved and safe for the whole family, from adults to kids ages 1 and up. If you're somebody who struggles to drink water, Xander and I actually are not. You've really gotten me on the water drinking train, but I know most people do not drink water. My mom said she is lucky if she drinks like a glass of water a day, which is crazy.
Good Lord, she needs to have a cure in that water.
Yeah, so if you're somebody who's like, I can't drink plain water, I need some flavor, I think Cure is a really amazing option.
Well, not only is it flavor, but it's actual electrolytes and that come from coconut. So it like tastes like a coconut water with flavor. It's delicious and is giving you electrolytes that you need.
Yeah, I was pretty astounded to learn that 75% of Americans are dehydrated and don't drink enough water and electrolytes. And dehydration is one of the most common symptoms of fatigue, headaches, brain fog, and dry skin.
Yeah, I know for me personally, once I started hydrating better, and especially once I started using electrolyte packets like Cure, that is when a lot of the brain fog and kind of like headachiness that I would get towards the end of the day, that's when that started to go away. And for me, I'm super active. If I don't drink a bunch of electrolytes right after surfing, like that's setting myself up for a day where I'm feeling achy in the head. So yeah, I cannot recommend this more highly, whether you are super active or not and just struggling to drink water. Like, this is so essential for you.
Hydration goes beyond just drinking water. It's about replenishing the electrolytes we lose through sweat, sleep, alcohol, and daily activities. Water alone is not enough to do the job. That's why you need to try Cure, the electrolyte drink mix that tastes as amazing as it makes you feel. And for Pillow Talks listeners, Cure has an awesome deal. They are offering 20% off your first order. Stay hydrated and feel your best by visiting curehydration.com/pillow and using promo code PILLOW at checkout. That's curehydration.com/pillow and use code PILLOW for 20% off your first order. There's one other piece in this too that I think is really important, and it's looking at life from a lens of what's possible versus what's not possible. I think a lot of us operate in a scarcity mentality. And sometimes like we're just in seasons of survival where all we can do is just focus on survival, and that's understandable and normal and okay and allowed. But I think a majority of the people live in this scarcity mindset the majority of their lives, which is really tough. And that is something that I want to encourage people to try to break out of. I think when you look at life from the perspective of what is possible for me versus what's not possible for me, it really shifts things. So if you're a parent and you see the fuck first reel, first of all, you could just say, I'm not interested in this one, move on to the next one. Totally cool. I support you on that. But if there's something that's like catching your attention about it, like imagine what it would be like to say, okay, this doesn't immediately feel doable for me, but I wonder if there's a way that I could. I wonder if there's a way that I could adjust this or take like one piece of it or take like that core belief behind it and make it work for me.
Or even make it work for me sometimes.
Or try it and see if it could. And if it doesn't, then I move on to the next thing. So again, it like you're allowed to just say, not interested, moving on to the next thing. But if there's something that's like grabbing you about it, that's making you want to leave a comment of this wouldn't work, just imagine instead what life could feel like if you approached it from how could I make this work for me? So if you are a parent and you're kind of curious about trying the fuck first rule, but it feels a little complicated to you, we want to give you some tips, some ideas of ways that it could work. And again, everybody's unique, everybody's different. Some of these tips may work for you, some of them may not, but here's the buffet for you. So on a more practical level, maybe it's getting the kids to be taken care of outside of the house. So you take them to grandma and grandpa's house, or you find another couple and you guys trade off kid sitting for each other, so that you're kind of working into the date. Like we're not just dropping off the kids and then going to the date. Maybe it's we're dropping off the kids and then coming home to have a little time together. Or
you just have your date at home.
Yeah, have the date at home. Or ask grandma and grandpa, can you come pick up the kids and take them away? So that could be a possibility. If you have a babysitter, we actually got this idea from a babysitter who was like, look, I understand parents want alone time. Like, just tell me to take the kids out of the house so they don't have to get upset watching us leave, right? So like ask the babysitter, take them to the park, take them on a little walk around the block,
yeah, you can
take them on a drive somewhere,
Yeah, and like literally give them like a time like, hey, I like please take them out of the house for the next hour because we will be getting ready for the date, and we don't want you to come home while we're still here, so that then the kids will get upset because then we're actually going to leave. Like, we're trying to make this you can center this on the kids, like, hey, we want like this to be a good transition for the kids, so why don't you just leave the house? It needs to be an hour because we won't be leaving for an hour. Make it really clear, because I think a lot of people get in their heads, oh, well, if I tell them to go to the park, then I'm going to be like worrying about like, are they going to walk in on us the whole time? Like there are ways to sort this out.
Or literally just tell the babysitter, like, we just want a little bit of alone time in our own house. Like, could you please just take the kids out? That's totally a fine thing to do here. Other parents have told us they let the kids watch a show or watch a movie, and they lock themselves in the bedroom or lock themselves in the bathroom and turn the shower on. Yeah,
depending on the age of the kids, this can be something that could work, or something that's maybe not going to work if the kids are too young.
Okay, Xander, we're going to do a little choose your own adventure. Pick between hometown, lecture me, and the ticket.
I think we did lecture me before, so let's do the ticket.
Ooh, okay.
I think I know what's coming.
Tell me something I wouldn't know just from looking at you right now.
I'm getting wet.
How come?
For you.
Full sentences, please.
Ooh, that got spicy.
That was a little clip from The Ticket from Dipsea, which is the female-founded app for spicy audiobooks and more, created by women for the female gaze. Their app is so incredible. It has over 1,000 spicy audiobooks, all crafted by a team of professional writers and top-tier narrators. So whether you're looking for a rugged cowboy, a Scottish sailor, maybe you got into the world of the Fae, like I did a deep dive into like the last year, the god of the underworld, whatever you're into, you're going to find characters that you love on Dipsea. With their easy to explore app, you can search for your favorite romance genres. We're talking things like contemporary, historical, dark, sports, western, romantasy, sapphic, like The Ticket sounds like it may be, and more. And new chapters are released every week, so you'll always find something new to enjoy. And Dipsea has an incredible offer for listeners of the show. You can try an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/pillow. Seriously, there's no reason not to try it out. Like 30 days for free. If you got even a little bit of a like, oh,
A little zing out of that?
Yeah, from The Ticket, try it out. It might surprise you.
Go
just
listen
how
to
much
the
you
rest.
like it.
I mean, I need to know what happens.
That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to dipseastories.com/pillow, dipseastories.com/pillow. So those are some practical tips, but like the whole spirit of the fuck first rule, what Xander and I have come to recognize is like the idea is prioritizing intimacy earlier in the day, not leaving it until the very last thing at night when we're full and maybe a little drunk and exhausted. Like that's such a hard time to get excited for sex.
Yeah, you don't want it to be the last thing on the to-do list. When you have a to-do list, the things that the last one or two things, like what? Let's be real. Very often those end up getting punted to the next day, right? And the problem though is that when sex is on the to-do list, typically, okay, let's back up. Typically, if you have a to-do list and there's something I needed to get done today, but I didn't get it done, if I were creating a to-do list for the next day, that would go to the very top of my to-do list for the next day, right? But let's be real. When sex is on your to-do list, the vast majority of people will just punt it to the end of the to-do list for the next day. No one is going like, all right, I said I was going to have sex today. I didn't. Now I'm going to make that my number one priority tomorrow. Barely anybody does that. If you do, that's awesome. And I applaud you. But most people don't do that. And so in this case, if that's like the way that you think about it, then yeah, it's like you're basically acknowledging to yourself, subconsciously, and then to your partner, possibly more explicitly, like sex is just not something I'm prioritizing very much.
So instead, what you could do is maybe there's a different time earlier in the day that you could prioritize. Like the kids have nap time or they're at school or you guys, come back for lunch. Maybe it's even just in the morning, first thing, like waking up before the kids. So that it's just a different way of looking at sex, of trying to figure out, okay, here's our schedule. Here's all the stuff that we have to do and take care of. Where's the best time for us to fit sex in so that we're giving each other some of our energy and attention? All right, let's wrap things up with the last reel that we were going to discuss. This one was all about how to turn your partner down without hurting their feelings. So it was like we had two columns on the reel with like one was our old way and one was our new way. So the old way is like, bad ways of turning down your partner. So it was things like, I'm not in the mood, I'm tired, stop it. And what we had under the new way was, I love that you want to connect with me. I know it takes a lot to put yourself out there. I'm not feeling open to it right now. Can we get a rain check? And next time I'll initiate with you. So one of the main criticisms that came up on that reel was people saying this language is so clinical. Like, why would nobody ever talks that way? You sound like robots talking to each other.
All right, so take it and put it in your own words. Put it in your own language.
I mean, first of all, yes, obviously, like put it in your own language. Everybody speaks to each other differently. Like say it in the way that feels natural to you, of course. But also, like, I don't think that that's that clinical at all. That was not like, thank you. I have received your request for sexual initiation. At this moment, I regretfully am unable to,
I regret to inform you.
It's just like, hey, I love that you wanted to connect with me. How is that clinical? Tell me how that is cold and clinical.
I don't know. It sounds like something a psychologist would tell you to say.
You know what? If people communicated the way that therapists told them to communicate,
We'd have a lot fewer
way
problems.
Happier. And that's what really struck me about this reel. Is like people are so unfamiliar with healthy communication that it feels clinical to them.
But you know what? I think what's really going on there, though, when people have that objection to this, what they're really saying is, like that like feels well. It feels hard because in that we're saying, hey, now it's your responsibility to initiate the next time. And a lot of people are like, I just want to be able to say no. I just want to be able to say no, not give a reason, not like say no. And I want to be able to say no in a not very caring way without giving a reason. And I don't want to have to be responsible for initiating.
Yeah, so here's the thing, like you're allowed to say no whenever you want, for whatever reason you want, for no reason whatsoever. Like it's your body, you get to decide what you want to do with it. And just like we were talking about, like the very first one, being considerate of how your partner's going to receive something, you have to be considerate here too. It's really important for us to be able to hold both of those truths at the same time. You're allowed to say no whenever you want, and your partner is allowed to want sex whenever they want. And actually, there's a third truth in it too. Your partner's allowed to feel bummed out if you're not open to being intimate with them. They're not allowed to guilt, pressure, manipulate, coerce you into having sex, but they are allowed to feel like, dang, I had wanted to spend time with my partner.
I mean, not only are they allowed to, like they will have feelings about it. There is no way to turn somebody down and ensure that they have zero feelings about it.
Yeah. So if you just tell your partner, like, I'm too tired, like that's a perfectly valid excuse. I've not wanted to have sex because I'm too tired plenty of times, and have not had sex because I'm too tired plenty of times. So that's a valid reason that you can give. But when you hear that from your partner, it doesn't feel very intimate. I think what we forget is sex is a way for us to feel close and intimate with each other. It's not just a physical act. And so I encourage people, when your partner is initiating with you, imagine that what they're actually saying to you is, I want to feel close to you right now. If your partner said that to you, would you say, I'm too tired? No, of course not, right? Like you would acknowledge that. And even if you were too tired to spend any time with them or connect with them or have sex with them or go on a date with them, whatever it is, like you would still have a much softer way that you would respond to that.
Or even like, oh, that's really sweet. I'm in the middle of 5 things on my to-do list and I'm like, don't have time to hug you or cuddle with you right now or something like that. But like even just being like, oh, that's so sweet.
I love that you wanted to connect with me. That was literally the first sentence in the thing. So it's acknowledging, like, I appreciate that. I want to feel close to you too. The second part of our original statement was, I know it takes a lot to put yourself out there. So it's just acknowledging there is so much vulnerability that goes into initiation. And I know it doesn't feel that way for a lot of couples because your partner's probably initiating by saying like, want to do it? Or like, it's been a while. Like, well, I get that. But it's because they feel so freaking vulnerable that they're trying to do it in these half-hearted ways so that when you say no, they can kind of feel like, oh, I wasn't even trying that much anyways, right?
Yeah,
but
and if you want proof of, how vulnerable this is, look at all the comments. Look up that reel. Look at all the comments from men that are like, I've given up on initiating because like she rejects me so much, and I like feel so. It's like there's so many people that they're super triggered by this because they feel like they've been rejected so many times in ways that don't feel good to them. So yeah, I can promise you that it's tough.
Yeah, so just taking that moment, that effort to acknowledge, like, I see the vulnerability. I see that you put yourself out there is really important. And then the last part of this one was saying, the next time I'll initiate with you. And there were a million comments from men being like, I turned into a skeleton before she actually came back around and initiated.
Yeah,
like,
still waiting for that rain check.
Yeah. So I like offering that. because it's a recognition of the vulnerability that it took to initiate. So you're telling your partner, like, I see that vulnerability. I'm going to take that role, that responsibility, that load on the next time, and I will be the one to initiate.
No, I think there's also some probably pushback. We kind of gave the like gender stereotype there of like, like men feel like that's like a hollow promise. I think on the flip side of that gender stereotype, there may also be a number of women who kind of objected to that idea because it's like, oh, well, like I'm not open to initiating because like I'm totally overwhelmed or overloaded, or like, my partner doesn't like do anything to like be connected with me and all this stuff. And like, yeah, we're not saying this is the silver bullet to fix your relationship. Oh, if all you do is initiate after you turn your partner down, then like, boom, problem solved. Like if there are deeper, more systemic issues in your relationship, the mental load is imbalanced, you guys aren't feeling emotionally connected at all, you're barely seeing each other, you're not going on date nights, then yeah, like this on its own isn't going to work for you. Like there's going to have to be a bigger discussion of like, hey, I love that you want to be having sex with me, that you want to feel close to me. I know that it was vulnerable of you to initiate with me right now. I would really like for us to be having more sex. I would really like to be in the mood for sex more. Here are some of the things that are coming up for me that are making it challenging for me to have the mental space or to feel connected enough to have sex right now. And use that to kind of pivot into a conversation of like, how can we start to address some of these things that are going on that are going to make me feel more excited about this and are going to make me actually be excited about initiating with you the next time or tomorrow or a couple days from now when I am feeling excited about that.
Yeah, and what made me so frustrated about a lot of the comments that I was seeing from men who were super frustrated about their partner never initiating is I was like, I understand why you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, that makes perfect sense. Like, if your partner never initiates with you, of course, you're going to feel hurt. You're going to miss them. You're going to want to connect with them. You're going to feel like all the load, all the responsibility is on you to keep your sex life afloat and active. Like, it makes perfect sense to feel sad, to feel frustrated, to like want more from your partner. But at the same time, all these dudes were being such assholes about it that they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's like, you actually deserve the thing that you want, but you're being such a jerk about it that you're turning it into not deserving.
Yeah, I mean, like there were a lot of dudes, or just a lot of people, most of them happen to be dudes, that were like, oh, it's been like 5 years since we've had sex, and like every time I initiate, she says something like, oh yeah, like maybe next time or whatever, and it never happens. I just don't believe her anymore. And it's like, for anyone feeling resentful because it hasn't happened time after time, year after year, that I hate to break it to you, but that is on you too. It's on you, because this is a real issue. Like at a certain point in time, and this goes on long enough, like, yeah, like this is a real issue. I mean, sex is one of the top reasons that relationships end and people get divorces. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like sex is important. And if you are not getting if you are not able to have the type of physical intimacy that is important to you long term, like you absolutely deserve to get into a new relationship where you do have a chance of having that. And so, but yeah, after years and years of kind of putting up with that or not saying anything about that, yeah, like you are literally co-signing on it. You are creating a situation where it is okay for your partner to just continue saying no or continue giving you rain checks and never coming back to it. Like at a certain point, you do have to stand up for yourself and you have to say, hey, I'm like, this is starting to feel like a real serious issue for me. This is a really important thing. Physical intimacy is a really important thing for me. And I need some amount of it in my relationship to be able to have a successful long-term marriage. And like, we need to talk about like how we can make that happen for both of us. And so I think all these people that are complaining about how many years it's been, I'm like, yeah, like I agree with you. That is a problem, But it is also a problem that you are not taking action on that. Like just sitting there being like, okay, yeah, I guess it's just never going to happen, and just allowing yourself to be resentful. Like you are an equal part of that problem.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just so sad because I'm like, that's literally what our account is here for, is to like help couples realize that sex is important. It is a really valid part of, relationships and intimacy and connection. We're here to help you figure out how to experience more of that with your partner. But you also have to be open to learning new techniques, to changing your ways, to looking at the responsibility that you have in these situations. So it's tough, man.
It's tough.
We want to help, but stop being a jerk.
Yeah, you gotta have good communication. Gotta say what your needs are, what your wants are, what your fantasies, what your desires are, and you also have to be able to stand up for yourself and have tough conversations. Don't let things go for years and years and years. All you have to do is look at some of these Instagram comments to see what happens to you if you let this stuff go for years and years. Like you're going to be a bitter, resentful person. You're not going to be happy.
And also, I just have to call out, because we haven't said this explicitly, like there was a lot of entitlement in these comments too about like, what men deserve and like feeling like women need to give it to men whenever they want it. I mean, there was some gross comment of like, keep his belly full and his cock empty or something like
Balls
that.
empty.
Balls empty.
Wow, you took that up a notch.
I was like, that's so gross. Like nobody is how do I say this? We are all deserving of intimacy, but you're not owed sex. You're never owed sex.
And if you believe that you are, like I'm not going to tell you like that you can't believe that. Like I'm sure you can find plenty of people out there that will want to be in a relationship with you with that type of arrangement. But if that's the case, like just move on from our account. Like nothing that we have to say is going to be helpful for you. In fact, everything we have to say is going to be unhelpful for you because it's going to go against that worldview. It's going to take you further away from where you want to be, which is that you just want to be able to have sex whenever for yourself. It doesn't really matter what your partner thinks about it or what their level of enjoyment is. So yeah, like literally nothing we say is going to be helpful for you. So boom, move on.
Actually, that reminds me, we have an entire episode 73, do you ever owe sex to your partner? That goes into a whole debate about this topic.
What spoiler alert is, you don't.
But we get into a lot of nuance in that. Nuance, my favorite word today. All right, well, that wraps it up for today. If you are not already joining us on Instagram, we'd love to connect with you over there too. We're at Vanessa and Xander. Would love to hear your thoughts on what we talked about today. Would love to have you all up in our comments, helping us create a little more nuance in the world of social media.
Yeah,
so
we love
us.
that. We love the commenters who, try to call out, hey, it doesn't have to be exactly the way they said, or here's a way that I modified this to make it work for me. That is so helpful for helping people break free of that kind of black and white thinking.
All right, well, that's all for today's episode of Pillow Talks. Thank you so much for listening. Join us again next week.